So I started the recording this morning. Welcome to the webinar, Blended and Flipped Learning Practical Applications. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. Again, my name is Mike Lesecki, and I'm your host today. Let me introduce you to our presenters, or really our presenter. It's Jerry Overmeyer, and he's from the Math and Science what do we call it? Oh, there's Math and Science Teaching Institute at the University of Northern Colorado. You know, Jerry has teaching experience in both secondary and college math, and he's the coordinator of MAST Web Connect. That provides expertise and quality resources for teachers and students in math and science. Jerry is one of the early adopters of the flipped classroom method and gives inspiring presentations for educators interested in flipping their classrooms. In fact, he's the creator of the Flipped Class Network, Inc. And would you believe it? There's 9,000 members online in that professional learning network for teachers. And I'm sure Jerry would be interested in you joining that as well. Jerry, welcome to the webinar this morning. How did you get interested in this flipped business? Give us a sense of it. Yeah, that's good. Jerry, hold on a second. We're having some volume issues. Do you see the talk button underneath the audio-visual screen there on the upper left? Can you try pressing that? All right, let's see. For some reason, they heard me fine, but they're not hearing you. Tell you what, let's get ready. You see some of the chat comments. Why don't you try doing that?
Can people hear me now talking on through the computer? Yay, okay. Yes, great. Okay, loud, very loud. Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so should I start over? Ouch. I think I've blown some ears out. Okay, I can talk a little more quiet now.
Okay. Everyone, may I ask you a question? Hold on, Jerry. Can you also hear Mike? Okay. Jerry, why don't you start over from the point where I asked you how you got into flipped learning?
Okay, so I was involved in the first decade of this century at Colorado State University, where we have we call them the Math Mods. It's a mastery learning method for learning pre-calculus mathematics, and all through the 70s and 80s, it was just a lot of workbooks and Scantron machines. We had an industrial strength Scantron machine. And working with a professor, we decided we need to start making online videos of this. And so I just had a really good time making those online instructional videos. And this was back in the day before, many people were doing this. This was before YouTube was even really around or popular. And so about 4 years ago, I contacted John Bergman and Aaron Sams down in Woodland Park, Colorado, because I was just surfing the web and saw what they were doing. And I just thought this was a great way to learn and to teach. And it got me thinking when I was taking my, upper level math classes. For me as a learner, I could either take notes during the lecture or I could try to pay attention and figure out what's going on. But I couldn't do both at the same time. So when I'd go to do my homework later, I'd either have notes that I didn't understand, or I would have understood in class, but then I had no notes. And so by doing this sort of flipped method, where you can watch a lecture over and over and take notes as you're watching and pause and rewind, and then go to class and work on homework and do projects in class, I just thought that was just brilliant that these, the people had thought of this, and I was like, count me in.
Well, that's cool. Why don't you go ahead, and you have the best audio quality. Go ahead.
Okay, so should we talk about the objectives and stuff? Sure. So today, I want to make this, the next hour for you, as practical as we possibly can, and I'll try not to get into too much, technical things. But I want you to take away, what exactly is a flipped classroom? Where did that term come from? How does this involve video? I want to again say how to keep it simple, and that's really what I want you to take away with this is just get started on it and think about maybe this is something that you want in your class, and then what as teachers, what are you going to need to do for this? So I'm not going to read this whole slide because that's kind of, then I'd be a hypocrite about how we learn and teach. Then this would end up being you on next to your computer. But you can read that, and it talks about the whole model of schooling really is changing, or hopefully changing. Our whole model of how industry works and business works is changing quite a bit, and schools, I think, just need to adapt to this. And I think the main thing to keep in mind is giving a lecture may not be the best way to learn. And so I think that's where the flipped classroom really, got its start, is lecture not the best way to learn. So let's talk about what is the flipped classroom. And so the traditional definition of, if someone has to ask me, what is it in, 50 words or less, where teachers make videos that take the place of the direct instruction, so the lectures on videos. So then students get individual class time to work with their teachers on key learning activities. So it opens up the classroom to be, to completely change. You're not lecturing in class. So it's called flipped because what used to be the classwork, the lecture, is done outside of class, and what used to be homework is now done in class. And there's many different ways teachers are doing that and changing that thing around, but that's why it's called the flipped classroom. And you also hear the term blended learning, which is a hybrid of online and traditional. And in a sense, so flipped classroom is a type of blended learning. And let's talk about what the flipped classroom is not. It's certainly not about replacing teachers with videos. Personally, I think online courses and things like this, they have their place, but I feel we're not looking about replacing teachers with videos. And in fact, I'll talk about this a little more later, but if you decide to do flipping, your role as a teacher becomes more important. It's not about students working without structure, students working in isolation, or spending the entire class time staring at computer screens. So the flipped classroom is, though, and this is the main thing, it increases interaction and personalized contact time between students and teachers. Because before, if you were just spending a lot of your time lecturing, you might really not have gotten to know a lot of your students. Those students that sit in the front row, or, and as you're lecturing, and I know I'm guilty of this, is I'll be lecturing, I teach college mathematics, and I'll say something, and people are nodding their heads, I'm like, you understand this? And everyone's nodding their heads, and, or I ask a question, and, the same few kids answer every time. But in my own mind, I'm like, wow, I'm really lecturing well. And then I give a quiz on Friday, and half the class fails it. And I'm like, oh, why did I not see that coming? But now in a flipped class, I can, I work every day with the students, and I can see exactly where everyone's at and what they're able to do. So really, it's giving up this, and I'm sure you've seen this quote before, the sage on the stage, but you become the guide on the side. And in a way, it's kind of, I sometimes miss being the sage on the stage. Lecturing can be fun. So as a teacher, you got to think, hey, what do I want to give up? What do I want to change here? So again, like I said, flipped classroom, it's blending. So blended learning and flipped classroom, they have a Venn diagram that has a large intersection. That was my geeky math side coming through. But another nice thing is the content of the course is permanently archived for review or remediation. And that's what I think feedback I'm getting from teachers that use this and students is that they really like to be able to just have all these lectures on video that they can go review at any time. Okay, so let's do an audience poll. Is there anything?
Are you hearing me okay right now?
I am hearing you, Mike, yes.
Okay, so I want to remind people that to respond to your poll questions, you can see that little diagram down the bottom shows you where the polling response is. I can see some people are already responding, Jerry, so go ahead and tell them the question. I'm going to change the slide now and move that little polling icon.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm interested in
select. Go ahead.
How did you first hear about the flipped learning model? So the word flipped. Knowing the definition, obviously you've heard the word before because you signed up for this webinar. But I mean, have you actually read about what it means? And I guess, option A is sort of a joke because I always, I can't stand when, ivory tower bureaucrats try to tell teachers what to do. So A is hopefully a joke and we don't have many of those. But B, C, or D are maybe more serious about I'm interested in.
All right, I'm going to show the poll
Okay, so
results.
now that people have voted, can we see the results? Hey, there's the results. Okay. So mostly B and C. And just one person today is the first time they've heard about the flipped classroom. So you've been reading articles and heard about it from colleagues. And it's amazing to me because, 3 years ago, it was really just a really small handful of teachers doing this. And I just Googled CNN just to see what the latest news was, and there was one of my colleagues right on CNN.com's front page about flipped classroom, and I was just like, wow, this is really really taken off. So let's move on. Oh, so now we're going to take some questions from the audience. And so to do that, you can just type it into chat, and I think Mike will be sort of compiling that, or maybe Shannon.
Yes, let me give you one of the first questions that I have from the participants. And it's a complicated question in a way, and maybe you can repeat it because you have better audio quality. How does a faculty member find resources to do this flip stuff? I mean, they have a lot of stuff going on. How do they find the time and resources to do it?
Well, to find the time and resources, well, I think hopefully that's what I'll be addressing here in the next half hour or so. It's, really as a teacher, you've got to, decide how much, you want to have a life and a family and hobbies and stuff outside of just teaching. And there are some teachers who they've like, oh, I spent my entire summer making my online videos for my course. And I'm like, oh, okay. I won't do that. But, so, you've got to balance your time. And as you'll see, hopefully, coming up, that this doesn't have to be a giant endeavor right away. You can just kind of ease into it. And that's what I'm going to stress.
Jerry, take a couple of those questions you see in the chat room. I'm going to try logging in from a different phone.
Okay. So one of the questions was, how do you make students accountable for the out-of-class work, the videos? And so what I'm doing is I run it through Blackboard Learning Management System. A lot of teachers use Moodle, and they just attach a short quiz right after the video that students take online. And again, this is not an easy answer by any means. It really depends on your student population. And just making sure you set expectations for your students that this, is required. This is the lecture. It's not optional. If you've got videos that you want them to watch outside of class time, that it's up to the individual teacher. And one of the mantras of Flip Teachers is, just as no two classrooms are exactly the same, no two flipped classrooms are exactly the same. So it's really, your individual style as a teacher of how you want to manage your classroom.
I'm back on. Are you hearing me okay?
Yep, I'm hearing you okay. Oh, someone wrote, what is the length of your average video? That's a great question because I did forget to put that in later. It is, if you normally do a 40-minute lecture, we're finding that probably translates to a 10 to 15-minute video. And because when you lecture, you tend to repeat things, you tend to, ask your class, do you understand? You pause, you do a lot of things like that. And when you make a video, you can really condense a lot of that. And then that way students will pause and rewind. So, a 10 to 15-minute video equals a full class period lecture. But then a student watching it, and it's up to them. It might take them only 10 minutes and they might just nail it and be like, I got all this, ready to roll. Other students might take them a few hours to just, watch it over and over again. But yeah, so the condensing of time in videos is an important thing, that if you're lecturing for 50 minutes, do not make a 50-minute video.
Let's take one more question before we go ahead. I like this one. How do you make students accountable for the out-of-class work/video? I mean, do you do things like a short quiz?
Well, Mike, I think when you were switching phones, that's the one I did. When you switched phones.
What's that, Jerry?
I did address that one. You might have missed it when you were switching phones.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Let's take some of these questions and let's go ahead.
So next slide.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so I want to give a quick history of the whole screencasting that led to this flipped model. And like I said, video creation in the aughts, whatever the first decade of this century was. When I started this back at CSU, and even started it with some of the early pioneers in flipped classroom, is you had to have a fast, powerful computer. There were very few options for screen recording. You had to really buy some specialized software, and it wasn't just it was a real process. If you wanted to get your microphone hooked up to the software, you had to install drivers, and whatever you were recording with, like some sort of tablet, you had to install the drivers on that. And so it really, you had to really, be all in. And it would be impossible for an individual classroom teacher to take this on unless they were just totally, a tech geek that was just really interested in this. One thing we had to do is we had to save videos in different formats, and we had to compress them. And people with Macs needed a certain type of file, and people with PCs needed a different type of file. And so another thing that seems kind of funny, because this was only six years ago, is to store the videos I had to literally carry a hard drive across campus to our building that housed the servers and hand it to the IT folks, and they would plug it right in and type in a bunch of weird commands, and it would load in like that. And I like doing it because I like taking a walk across campus. But again, it's one of those things. It's like, wild to think that only 6-7 years ago this was what we had to do. And so let's show. Is this where we're going to show the video? I believe.
Yes. Just give me 1 second.
Okay. Okay, we're trying some technical stuff here. Hopefully, in 40 years, this will be much easier. But we're stepping out of our comfort zone. Okay, I'm going to show it.
Remind people they may have to press play.
You may have to press play. And I'm not getting any volume from...
Your speaker should be off. You shouldn't hear it. Jerry shouldn't hear it.
Okay.
Okay, Jerry, just a second. I'm going to turn this off.
Okay. And we're back. Oh wow, you can see all the weird freaky videos I have on my YouTube account.
Okay, hold on just a second. What are you seeing on your screen now?
So I'm seeing YouTube My Humble Screencast Studio. Now it's back to video. Now it's video creation now.
Okay, back to you.
Great. So, what I wanted to show is that, 6-7 years ago, last decade, creating videos was a real chore. It felt like an individual classroom teacher. We had a full, the entire math department at Colorado State. We had a team of about 6 or 7 of us. We had a tech person just for this. Like I said, we had, video renderers and all this. But now it's, really, I think that's what the popularity has really been driven by, is simply how easy it is to make a screencast video. There's Jane, which is a free thing, Screencast-O-Matic, which is free. You just type it in, and if you have Java, you can just open a web page and do a screencast. Snagit, iMovie, Camtasia. iMovie's, I think anything you buy, any kind of Mac that you buy comes with iMovie. And it's just a matter of press record, press stop, and post online and paste the URL to your learning management system. So it's extremely easy. So this got me thinking a little bit about video creation in the 20s, so in the next decade. Where's that going to go? And, you just think about, the smartphones and computers we have right now, and like this, Blackboard Collaborate that we're doing today. We've had a few technical hiccups, but I think, we should all feel pretty good that we took the chance to do an online webinar. It's still kind of a new thing. And probably in 10 years, it'll be something you don't even think about. It'll just be like, oh, webinar, boop, login, boop. There won't be any audio issues. And I think the way I think of it is, you imagine automobiles from 100 years ago, and you see those old movies where people were constantly, you had to crank them to get them started, and, you're always getting flat tires, and roads were horrible, and just driving was a chore. And now, it seems you basically get in your car and drive, and you don't even think about it. And I kind of see this video creation just getting easier and easier and easier, and it's just going to be just more fluid. And it's so when people ask, is this whole flipped classroom a fad or just kind of hype? And I think it's not only is it not hype, but it's just going to become a natural part of learning to use technology in these ways. And so if people have questions about video creation down the line and want to get a hold of me, that'd be great. So
There's a question also. I'm going to take that question that you see in the chat right now and repeat the question.
About posting online?
Yes.
Yeah, so when someone says post online, do you mean YouTube? YouTube is great, and it is sort of the default place to post things. However, some schools, but this is, like middle schools, block YouTube. But if you're at a school that isn't blocking YouTube, I think YouTube's great because, you've got Google behind it, so they've got as much bandwidth as you can imagine. There's no problems with anything like that. And plus, I think a nice thing about YouTube is what started off with people doing these flipped videos is other people started watching them and commenting on them. And so I think once we get a huge catalog of videos out on YouTube, they'll start to get categorized better, and it'll become where students will have sort of a choice of maybe they don't want a teacher who's all goofy and scatterbrained and things. They want someone very serious and talking slowly and things like that. And other students might want someone who's kind of joking around and acting a little spazzy and stuff. So, yeah, YouTube is good. Yeah, if they can't put it on YouTube, there's other options. One is called a Screencast. Screencast-O-Matic has a built-in storage place. There's, I believe, Vimeo. There's a few others. So if there's YouTube for education, and I know a lot of schools can unblock YouTube education. So hopefully that helps with that. So the thing is ease into the process and be patient. And I think one thing I noticed, like I went to the Flipped conference this summer in Chicago, is all the presenters are experienced super teachers in a way. And they're the ones who said, like, well, I spent all summer making videos, and just, I could see people's eyes kind of rolling, like, oh my God, I'm not going to do that, And you have to also remember, it's not a one-year process. It's not going to be a matter of, all right, I'm going to have a completely flipped classroom by the end of the semester or whatever. It's, even John Bergman and Aaron Sams, who are the pioneers in this, it's taken them 5 years to get their classes where they really feel that they've made a flipped classroom. And so, as I talk a little bit more about some of the easing into the process things you can do, one thing teachers are finding is adding online assessments to go along with this flipped model. And what I like about this is, you can slowly add this, and it allows you to get to know your students' strengths and weaknesses before a big exam. So if you're teaching in a place where you're not collecting homework and looking at homework all the time, you can kind of see how are they doing on these online assessments. And I think, again, sort of like online video, online assessments are going to be becoming just a lot easier and easier to use over the next few years. So hopefully it's something that we can all take advantage of. Another thing I'm finding from teachers that do this flipped is you really need to train your students in this. You can't just be like, all right, class, we're doing, this class is going to be called Flipped Classroom. That means your homework is on videos, and in class we're going to be doing homework. You can't just, leave it at that. You've really got to spell it out. This is a flipped classroom. Have a handout that explicitly states, this is what's going to be different, this is what's going to be the same. You know, you may be used to just, you know, coming into a college class, doing lectures, doing some workshops. You know, make the expectations clear that, you know, instead of lecture, the lecture will be on videos. Another thing to keep in mind is keep technology in the comfort zone of you and your students. If you get bogged down with technology, it's just going to hurt things in the long run. You know, so don't use technology just for technology's sake. You know, if someone's like, you know, oh, there's this great new app that allows you to do a poll of your students in the middle of the class using your smartphones, you might be like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then if you think about it and they're like, no, my class doesn't need that, then don't use it. You know, don't use technology just for technology's sake. And again, have confidence that you know what you're doing with the flipped classroom. I think I'm finding that some teachers that kind of run into roadblocks, they sort of are kind of saying to their students, well, you know, we're going to try this new thing, and we'll just, you know, you've got to really sell it to your students and say, hey, I know me standing up here lecturing to you and you taking notes is not the best way that we're going to learn. So we're going to do this other method where some of my lectures will be on video, and it's a way better way to learn. And just, you got to sell it to your students and say, hey, this is how things are going to be. You'll have a lot more success. And again, about, you know, creating the flipped classroom, and I think there have been, someone had posted a question about this, is, you know, you don't have to go all in right away. One thing that some teachers are finding is create short videos that are solutions to homework problems or review problems. Post exam solutions as videos. So, you know, we've all done probably where you pass back a quiz and then you go over the quiz in class. And really that's pretty counterproductive, because the students that studied hard and got the quiz correct, you're really just wasting their time. And then the students that didn't do well on the quiz, just because you go over it once in class doesn't mean they're going to understand it. So, you know, my students' eyes lit up when I handed back a quiz and a student said, can we go over the quiz? And I said, no, but there'll be a video of the solutions up this afternoon. And they're like, oh, wow, that's great. Another thing that I'm finding teachers doing is, suppose you're going to be doing a lab or some kind of, you know, project. You can post the instructions for that as a video. And that works well, because if then a student comes in and is like, wait, what? We're supposed to do what? You can be like, you didn't watch the video. You know, you're not going to be able to participate today, kind of a thing. That teachers are finding that works well, because it saves a lot of time. Because if you've got, you know, a really cool lab or project, students come in prepared and ready to go. And again, you don't feel you have to record all your lectures right away. Like John Bergman, or Aaron Sams, I mean, he says he never addresses his entire class all as a group anymore. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I personally feel that whole class discussions still have value, even if you're flipping all your lectures. There's still a good time to say, all right, everybody, let's get together and discuss this. So don't feel you need to, you know, you're completely flipping your class. You can just make short videos for students who need remediation because they missed class. And again, someone had asked about, do we have to make all the videos ourselves? And the answer is yes and no. I personally think that as a teacher, only you know the student population you have. And they're, you know, they want to hear your voice. They want to hear your expertise. They want to hear the way you explain something on a video is the same language you're going to be using in class, the same tone. But at the same time, there are already great resources available out there. There's a new TED Ed has been making these really cool animated videos where they have teachers do like a 5-minute lecture that would normally be kind of boring, but then they have these animators animating it. Like, for example, John Bergman, he does a really good lecture about what is actually the size of an atom. And the TED Ed folks took an animation of it, and he's actually flying inside the atoms and things like that. And it's just really cool. And they've been doing the same things with like mathematics videos, where it's like, you know, zooming in and zooming out, stuff that would be impossible without these, you know, professional animators. And then again, you can always search YouTube. If you're teaching a specific topic and you do a YouTube search and someone out there made a video of it, and it's just like, wow, that's perfect, then feel free to use it. And another thing you can do is, as you're making your videos, embed short clips into your videos. So say, for example, you're doing like a video on deductive reasoning, and there's that humorous scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, she's a witch, you know, she's a witch, and they use very faulty deductive reasoning. You know, embed that clip right into your video as a way to just mix things up. So you can kind of do a hybrid and stuff like that. She's a witch. So, and again, keeping it simple. And this is where, you know, 5 years ago, 3 years ago even, this was a pretty involved process. What I discovered is, in mathematics, it was driving me nuts trying to write on like a tablet. And I know some teachers can do it well, but I could not write mathematical equations on a tablet. So I was like, I'm going to try a document camera instead. And recently this little guy, this Ziggy camera, came out, 89 bucks. And I've just been using this, and all the other math teachers here at UNC are using this also to make their videos. And so it's, you know, it's going old school. We're keeping it simple. If we want to have an arrow point to a certain thing, we don't have to like be video editors and create an arrow. We just stick our finger under the camera, you know. So so whatever appears under the camera is what gets recorded. And it's, you know, it's nothing too flashy or anything, but we can do our mathematics, and I think students seem to like it. The microphone I'm using right now is this little thing from Logitech. It was under 20 bucks. Plugs into a USB, and you know, we're at a point where, you know, computers are still, you know, it's going to be all through our lifetime where computers are like, this is driving me crazy. But it's usually to the point where you plug in this microphone and it works. It's not, but I can't say. You know, now that I said that, it'll probably poop out on me here in a couple minutes. This is the screencasting options. Like I said, they're getting a lot better. What I use for screencasting is Camtasia, which is not cheap, but it's pretty much the I think what the industry standard you'd call it. But another thing I've used is called Snagit. And what I'll do is, if someone sends me an email, like I run the Moodle site for a number of Flip teachers, and they'll just send me a question like, oh, how do I, you know, import my students again? And instead of typing up, all right, go to this screen, then go to this screen, then go to this screen, I'll just hit Snagit and do a quick screencast. And what's crazy is, the first time I did this, I was like, oh, where the heck is my video? And it automatically puts the link to your video in Control-C into your paste button. So I was like, where's my video? I hit Control-V. I just hit Control-V, paste, and it was like, boom, and there was the link to the video. I was like, oh, that could not have been any easier. So now I respond to emails by making quick videos. And another cool thing is with iPads, there's screen capture apps for iPad. And touch screens are rapidly coming down in price and up in usability. So I think, you know, probably within a couple of years, you know, you'll kind of have an iPad sort of touch screen hybrid where you'll have a pen, and so you'll just be able to pull it out and hit record, and there'll be your document or whatever, and you can write math equations or whatever you need to write on there. So I think that the touch screen technology coming up is going to make the screen capture much easier too, coming up soon.
Hey Jerry, it's Mike.
Now,
I just wanted to do a voice test. Do you hear me?
To consider is, as a teacher, if you're going to be a flipped teacher, you really have to become a content expert. By removing lecture, you open up class time, and how will you use this? And the thing that flipped teachers are finding is the videos, they thought the videos were the important thing. The videos are the least important thing. It's how do you reuse your class time that's most important. I think about, just to be a lecturer, you don't, I can teach, I don't know, let me think of like chemistry. I sort of know chemistry. I kind of remember chemistry. I could teach a chemistry class lecture style, because I would just open up the book and make some notes and write those notes on the board, and students would take them, and then I'd write up a test, and I could probably do that. If I were to teach chemistry flipped, that'd be impossible for me, because I'd have students asking me questions all through class, and I'd be like, I don't know. So, it really makes teachers more important than ever. You've really got to be a content expert. And so you got to think about, if I remove lecture and open up class time, how are we going to use this? So let's do a poll. Mike, do I need your help on this, or can people just vote?
No, just 1 second.
Oh, there's no E. All of the above.
There it is.
The E is there? Hey, the E is there. Okay.
Okay, let's have everyone.
So how will you use your added class time? So we'll take a minute here.
Give them 10 more seconds. Use the polling button up in the participants box to make your choices, folks. I'll give you 5 more seconds. Okay, here comes the poll. Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, great. So looking at the poll, mostly it was all the above. And, realistically, it's like, well, field trips, that depends on what you're teaching. And again, like I've been saying, there's no one model for flipped teaching. It's really about, as a professional, as a pedagogical professional of your subject and your content, you know what's best for your students. And so, there's no wrong answers here, obviously. No one put classroom presentations, but I personally, I've been doing that in algebra a little bit, and it's mixed results. I think students get extremely nervous trying to teach math, but I try to really show them that everyone's nervous and everyone makes mistakes. And I kind of compare it to, like, I took 3 years of German in high school. If I was all of a sudden thrown into like a second or third year college German class, I'd be nervous as heck too. And so they need to think of algebra the same way. That's student presentations. I have my students work in groups, and again, that's as a teacher, you need to decide, is that something you want to do? Is that going to work for your student population? Things like that. Let's move on. Let's take some more questions. So let's say Guten Tag, yeah. Guten Tag. I think
Jerry,
that hello,
Jerry, it's Mike.
Go ahead.
Jerry, it's Mike. I'm going to try switching over to a headphone with a speaker so we can do some of these questions. You may have to turn on your speakers to hear me. Let's try that for a moment. Hopefully it won't echo so much. So just a second, let me switch over to my headphones. Just a minute.
Jerry, I wondered if you can hear me through this system right now.
Yes, I can hear you through the system now.
Everyone else can hear me, Jerry, but I'm not sure you can.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Jerry, can you hear me talking through the speakers now? It's
yes,
Mike.
I can hear you. But can you hear me? Yes. So I guess
oh,
Mike,
he can. Okay. So
people
let's
can
go
hear
ahead
both
and.
of us.
Okay, he can hear me. So Jerry, for some reason, I must have some setting wrong here. But let's go
Okay,
to the
other
first
people can
one of
hear
the
me.
questions that we can have here. And I think one of the ones that I see that's interesting is the one that says, excuse me, I'm just scanning here. Hold on
I
just a
saw a
moment.
good one I'd like to address. It was about
How about the one about copyright issues, Jerry? I know you mentioned using that scene from Monty Python, which is a pretty interesting thing.
oh yeah.
Do you have to get copyright permission for that?
No, so I think I'm under the understanding if you simply use any kind of media for educational purposes, you do not have to worry about any kind of copyright issues. Don't quote me 100% on that. Let me consult my attorney. But I'm almost positive that you can use movie clips and things like that for educational purposes. The one question I want to address is, which I thought was great, was if students don't read their textbook, why should I think they will look at video lecture? And so I think the point in that is in a sense like literature teachers maybe have always been flipping their classroom, because if an assignment in like an English class was read the next 20 pages of To Kill a Mockingbird and then we'll use class time to discuss it and do a project on it, that was reasonable. But if you tell your students, all right, read the next 20 pages out of your calculus book and come to class ready to work on it, it's not necessarily a matter of students doing their work or not. It's the fact that reading very technical subjects is very, very difficult. And so to learn calculus, you need to see someone and hear someone doing it. And when I do my videos, I really, I'll sometimes read through the textbook. And in a sense, I'm trying to train them. How do you really read a textbook? Some students have never been taught how to read a textbook. And maybe that's because reading a textbook isn't the best way to learn. So I, in the videos, just really tell them specifically, all right, so when I get to see something like this in math, first thing I need to think about is this. And oh, this always gives me anxiety when I see this. But if I break it down into parts, and so they can kind of hearing the voice and seeing the movement, I think really helps. Mike, do you have questions you want to throw at me, or should I just kind of...
Jerry, what about this one with the, I just got back on, told up to 1 minute is okay without a specific acknowledgement. You might have just addressed that.
Oh, okay, about copyright. Yeah, again, I'm not, I guess I really can't answer that. I want to talk about, do you know of anyone in composition writing courses that use this model? I think in my, the slide that has the address to the Flipped Learning Network NANE, I didn't really talk about that too much, but so I'm getting off the question for now. I feel like a politician. I'm not going to answer that question right now. But so what kind of was a really good move on my part is after one of the conferences about 3 years ago, this was January 2010, I was talking with John Bergman and Aaron Sams, and there were maybe a few hundred people that had been to these workshops, and I said, well, maybe I should start one of those social network sites to kind of, people can keep the conversation going. And we had a couple hundred people on it, and then it just has absolutely exploded, and we've got 9,000 members now. And that actually makes it easier on me because I don't feel I need to go on and respond to people every time, because it's a really it's a self-supporting network. And there's a group for composition and writing courses where a number of teachers talk about how they use the flip model in composition and writing courses. And so I recommend that if you just Google flipped classroom learn or flipped learning or flipped NAIN or any permutation of that, you'll find it. And we've got 9,000 members, and it's great because not only can you get questions, you know, answered and find information on how do I implement this, what's the best way to do this, but there's also, if you're using, say, Camtasia, you can type in, you know, help, Camtasia's, I can't get the audio to work, what's going on? And someone will write back, you know, hey, have you tried this? This is what I had. And it's like, oh, sweet, thanks. So that social network is professional learning network, I mean, because it's, I mean, I don't know, social network, professional learning network, same thing in a sense. Professional learning networks, well, it sounds more professional. But one thing that with composition and writing that teachers are finding, which is I actually did this because I was we had this thing called Noise Scholars here at UNC, and they had to submit kind of a technical paper, and I was supposed to review these papers. And instead of writing little comments in the margin in red, I just brought up their papers in a PDF and did a screencast. And I would be like, you know, hi Elam, how's it going? I'm reviewing your paper. I like what you did here. What you wrote here, though, I noticed a little mistake. Oh, I wish you could have, you know, elaborated more on this. But overall, you had a great paper. You know, thanks, and hit stop, and just email them that link. And so it was actually took less time than writing all the little comments in the margin. So that's one way that English and composition teachers are using this, is they're making individual feedback for all their students, and it actually saves them time because they don't have to write in the little margin.
Hey Jerry, I got a final question for you. It's Mike. Here's the question, let me see if I can phrase it correctly. How do people find within their own institutions help that they might need? I know here at the Maricopa Community Colleges we have centers for learning and instruction, and they have workshops on flipping and all kinds of stuff. Have you ever gone inside your own institution as opposed to out on Google?
I think, you know, what's surprising me more and more is that people are doing this that I didn't even know about. I'll just, you know, I'm here at University of Northern Colorado. We're about 10,000 students. And I just got an email from a grad student who's also a teacher out in rural Colorado, and he's doing a flipped U.S. history class. And I didn't even know about that. And he just emailed me and was like, hey, so we met and chatted and talked about how, you know, things that they use and stuff like that. And again, you know, don't be afraid to be the leader at your school on this too. And just say, hey, you know, we've got Blackboard, and all our students, you know, especially if you're at a community college, it can be a requirement that students go on and check Blackboard and things like that. And you don't have to worry as much about, you know, it can be an expectation that they have internet access outside of class. So just take the lead on this. And like I said, next time you pass back a quiz, just say, no, I'm not going to go over it in class, but there'll be a video up for it on Friday. And see how that goes. And then just post the link on Blackboard and just call it, you know, Quiz 5 Solutions, and just see how students like it. Or they'll be like, hey, can you go over this, you know, can we do a review for the test? And you're like, well, no, I don't want to spend class time just doing a test review. So I'll work, you know, give me 5 homework problems that you want me to make videos of, and I'll post them up before the test. And just go ahead and do it and see if students like that.
That's a good idea. Hey, you know, one last question, and then we'll go into our wrap-up phase. There was a comment in the chat room, and I'm not sure you answered it while I was off fooling around with the audio issues. But essentially the comment says, if students won't read the text that we assign them in their textbooks, why would they watch the videos that we assigned them? I might know the answer, but I'm interested in what you think.
Mike, I did address that one.
Okay, good. Well, we're fine. Here's what I think. So that, I'll just say that I guess today's students are much more involved. They expect things by video. They naturally look towards that as a solution.
Yeah, I think so.
So maybe that's the answer. Let me ask you, Jerry, before I go into the survey for folks, do you have any concluding thoughts from today or any interesting things in the chat that really struck you?
It's just great to see everyone, you know, here and involved and interested in this, and hopefully, you know, my goal is as an educator and a sort of teacher of teachers in a sense at a certain level is, you know, teachers are going to be overworked and, you know, working too hard no matter what they're doing. And so I just really want to find things that's going to make their lives easier. And, you know, like I said, with, you know, when you make videos with solutions, you know, maybe you used to have office hours were very stressful and you had tons of people at your office hours. Well, my office hours are a lot easier now because they're watching these on videos. There's, you know, so certain things in your job become easier. And I honestly feel that my students in college algebra are enjoying it more. They're actually learning it better. And I think it's just a better way to learn. So I just want to, you know, thank everyone for today, and hopefully you're able to get something out of this.
Thanks, Jerry. Let me just, I'll do the wrap up from here. Today, folks, okay, we had several objectives. One was to achieve a common definition of flipped, and I think we did that. Certainly talked about the rationale. And then to demonstrate the role of video in the flip model. Number 3, explain how to keep it simple and do limited flipping. And finally, identify what flip teachers do and what they must become. So thank you, Jerry, again for doing that. Here's the contact information for Jerry, and he's pretty accessible. jerry.overmar@unco.edu, and there's his link to the professional learning community that also appeared in the chat, flippedclassroom.org. So thank you again, Jerry. Now, everyone, to help us pay the bills here, would you just take a moment to respond to the survey that I'm going to put up on the screen? It should take about a minute or less. And now I'm going ahead to display the survey on the screen. Now, while you're responding to that, so just, Jerry, don't touch that screen, please. While you're responding to this survey, let me tell you a little bit about what's going to happen next. There are a number of questions in the chat room. How do we access this recording? All of you who have registered for this workshop today, for this webinar today, will be sent a link to the recording of the webinar and a PDF of this link to the slides themselves. So you'll have that information and it's easy to access. Got about 30 more seconds. I'll leave the survey up. You also can seek this webinar as well as others on the Maytech Network's digital library. And you'll see that session in just a second. I'll put up that link. So you can search for this webinar or other ones as well. This one, of course, you would search for Blended and Flipped Learning Part 2. And you can also find Part 1 there. So now I'm about 10 seconds away from the closing the survey. And again, thank you very much for participating in this survey as we go forward. And then we'll wrap up for today. So here's the close of the survey. Please hit submit if you haven't done so. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now today again, to access the recording and slides and handout, by the way, remember we're going to send you an email, but you can visit us and search through our digital library, as you've seen. Upcoming webinars in October, our Nano Future in November. 2 webinars about transitioning adults, adult education bridges and adult education career pathways. Be pretty cool. So hope to see you then online. If you attended the live version of this webinar and would like a certificate, please email Shannon. There's her address right there. She'll be happy to do it. Again, sorry for the little audio hiccups today. Thank you for attending the Maytech Network's webinar, Blended and Flipped Learning, Practical Applications. That concludes our presentation. Goodbye.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me? Oh, hey there. So I hear you on the phone.